Hey everybody, welcome to Active Churches Online. My name is Joe and I'm part of the team here.
And I'm Shauna.
And we are so glad you're tuning in and we want to know where you're tuning in from. So do me two things, all right? Head over to the comments and let us know where you're watching. Over the past couple weeks, we've had people from all over the place tune in from other states and even other countries. And maybe you're here watching in the Inland Empire. We want to hear from you. So go over to the comments and let us know. And number two, click that share button. We want to tell a better story everywhere.
And we believe that you are worth knowing here at Active. So there are 3 easy ways to get connected.
Yep.
You can click the link in the description to fill out a digital connect card. You can also text welcome to the number on the screen, or the new super easy way to get connected.
It's so cool, guys.
So easy. Pull out your phone and just scan the QR code right on your screen right now.
So pull out your phone right now and go ahead and scan that QR code. We want to know you and we want to help you tell a better story. Hey, next Sunday is Easter Sunday and we're going big here at Active Churches and I want you to be a part of it. You can do that today by taking a photo wherever you're at with your friends or with your family and tagging us at Active Churches on Instagram and Facebook. We're gonna have an awesome moment next week that I don't want you to miss out on. So do that right now at Active Churches, Instagram and Facebook. Let's see some of those photos. Let's tell a better story together.
That's right. And last week, we challenged you, Active, to partner with us through providing hope for our community.
And you showed up big, Active Church.
You showed up big. We partnered with Manna and provided meals for over 100 families in our community.
And I love that regardless of where we're at, we can tell these better stories together. And I love that we can still do this through our active giving. And I want to invite you to partner with us as we tell a better story in the Inland Empire. You can do that in 2 ways. Through your active giving by going to activechurches.com and clicking that giving button or texting the amount to the number that is on the screen. Active, we can continue to provide hope in the midst of crisis as we already have. And I want to invite you to partner with us in this season and for the near future. And can I say thank you for your generosity in advance?
Yeah, so right now we're going into a moment we call worship. I love that we have these moments even outside of the church walls. It's so amazing to be able to worship with my family, stand up and sing. I've really enjoyed these moments.
Yeah, me and my brother and my fiance every week have just had a moment where we get to sing together. And I want to invite you to sing with us as one church in so many different locations. So would you stand to your feet? And Active Church, can I just say, welcome home.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give a hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. And great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. And great are you, Lord. It's your breath your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's great are you, Lord. We sing great are you, Lord.
I'm caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment, and I never wanna leave. Oh, I'm not here for blessing. Jesus, you don't owe me anything, and more than anything that you can do, I just want you. Oh, I'm sorry when I've just gone through the motions. I'm sorry when I just sang another song. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. Oh, I'm sorry when I've come with my agenda. I'm sorry when I forgot that you're enough. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. Come on, we lift this up. I'm caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment, and I never wanna leave. Come on, I'm not here. Oh, I'm not here for blessing. Jesus, you don't owe me anything. just want you and nothing else, and nothing else, and nothing else will do. I just want you and nothing else, and nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you and nothing else, and nothing else, Lord, nothing else will do. I just want you and nothing else, and nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want and nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want nothing else, nothing just want you, Jesus.
It was so great singing with you this morning, Active Church. I love that this music, these songs that we belt out, can often be relief to our heart and certainty for our soul. So if there was a song that you love today, go over to the comment section and let us know what that favorite song is that you're listening to. Also, make sure you check us out on Spotify. We have an Active Churches playlist because we want you to take these anthems of hope into every avenue of life. Hey parents, I want you to know something that we're doing for your kids. We love our Active Kids ministry here at Active Church, and one way that we've provided an awesome experience for them is on our YouTube and all of our Active Kids social media pages. Pastor Heidi and Pastor Casey have made some incredible content for them, and we want you to engage and check that out. Coming up the week after Easter, April 19th, we're starting a brand new series called The Struggle is Still Real. And ain't that true for all of us right now? We're gonna be having an honest conversation about mental health, and you don't want to miss it, Active Church. It is such a good topic for this period of time. And so mark your calendars, April 19th, the week after Easter, we're having this great conversation all about mental health. And we're able to have these moments with our kids, and we're able to have these moments of worship, and we're able to have these moments where we have these deep and meaningful and honest conversations because of your giving. So thank you, Active Church, for allowing this to happen and have the story of Jesus spread so far. And I want to invite you to keep doing that with us through your active giving today. Head over to activechurches.com and click that give button or text the amount to the number that's coming up on the screen. We've been telling an incredible story for so many months already, and this online platform is just allowing us to share this even further and wider. It's allowing our kids a safe place and a fun place to be able to worship, and they're not forgotten. It's allowing the people who need these honest and real conversations about mental health to get those conversations. It's allowing us as a church community to stay connected. Your active giving changes the world, so let's keep being generous together. Hey, right now we're going to be heading into our You Have Permission series, and it's all about living confidently. And Pastor Mike has a great message prepared for us. Before we head into that message, can I just pray for us as a church that is scattered but still gathered together? Father, thank you for these moments of unity. Thank you for these moments of being challenged, and thank you for these moments of worship. We want to be so aware of you in everything always. May you help us experience that today. We lift up in your son's holy name, and all God's people said, amen.
Well, hey everyone, my name is Mike and I serve on the team here at Active Church, and I want to welcome you to Active Church Online. If you're watching at home or maybe in the car or you're taking me on a run with you, I'm so glad that you're joining us today. We are in the midst of a series called You Have Permission, and today is the final conversation of this series. And here's what we've been wrestling with over the last month. We've been wrestling with what God has invited us to say yes to. Whenever we ask for permission, we're wondering, can we do this? And this conversation, this series has been about God saying, yes, you can do this, and you can do this with confidence. Today, I want to wrestle through something that I believe will be really important for all of us, no matter how old we are or no matter where we come from. I really think this will be important for all of us. The last few weeks, we've been talking about how what's happening outside of us has influenced what's taking place inside of us. But today, I want to wrestle through what's taking place inside of us and how it influences what's happening all around us. I want to talk about something that when I talk about it, it's going to feel like it's not that big of a deal. Because this thing that I want to talk about is such a small slice of life. But I believe in this season of quarantine, in this season of being home, that this conversation is essential. Because the thing that we're going to talk about is going to fight for your attention. It's going to fight for control of your life. And if you decide not to rule it, it will rule you. It can overpower your prayers. It can overpower your worship. It can even overpower your relationship with Jesus. And it can determine the story that you are telling. And you have permission to tell a better story. So the thing that I'm talking about today, the thing that I want to wrestle through today is your appetites. And I'm not just talking about food, although food is included in your appetites. But we have appetites for a lot of different things. There's an appetite for progress. We want to move forward. We want to accomplish something. We have an appetite for responsibility, for being known. There's an appetite for being loved. There's even an appetite for being accepted. We are acceptance magnets in our culture. We love to be accepted. There's an appetite for sexual intimacy. There's an appetite for stuff. And there's an appetite for money. And people gain and lose influence depending upon how they did or did not manage their appetites. You and I are a product of our parents or our guardians' management or mismanagement of their appetites. I was raised in a Christian home. I came to know Jesus at the age of 8. I was baptized at the age of 8. And I'm so thankful that I was raised by a mom and a dad who surrendered their appetites to Jesus because they wanted to choose to live a life of following Jesus. Now, it doesn't mean that they were perfect, and it doesn't mean that I'm perfect. Just ask my wife, ask my kids. But what it means is it gave me a healthy and holy perspective of the story that God is writing for me. I know some of you may have a completely different upbringing than I had. Maybe you are the one that's turning the tide, that's turning the corner of your family. 50, 60 years from now, generations from now, people in your family will look back on the decisions that you have made and how it changed everything. And so your decisions, they matter. The story you're telling, it matters. And it all starts with our appetites and how we manage or mismanage our appetites. Now, a couple things about appetites that I just want to bring to the surface. I want to bring some clarity to. So first thing, God created our appetites, and sin distorts our appetites. They're not bad. Appetites are not bad. It's good to want to progress. It's good to want to grow. It's good to want to be loved. It's good to want to be accepted. But what sin does is it causes us to miss the mark in our appetites, and it can break the things that we long for. God created our appetites, and sin broke our appetites. Second thing, appetites are never fully and finally satisfied. I mean, think about those moments where you're really, really hungry and you find yourself scouring the kitchen, especially in quarantine. I'm looking at you. I see you eating all the quarantine snacks. I'm with you. But you're hungry, right? And you're scouring the kitchen. How many of you, just by a show of hands, have ever had a meal that began with like Pringles, and then you had like a banana, and then you had like a fruit roll-up afterwards because you were so hungry? Have you ever had a meal where you're just starving and you eat and you fill up and you're like, I can't eat another thing? And then what happens? Maybe an hour or 2 hours later or 4 hours later, you're hungry again, right? Because appetites are never fully and finally satisfied. And then a third thing about appetites is they always whisper now, and they never whisper later. And appetites will invite you to trade what you want most for what you want now, which is why your response to your appetites will determine the direction of your life. And I want you to embrace God's potential for your life. I want you to tell a better story, which is why I want to say to you that you have permission to tell a better story. So what do we do, right? What do we do with these appetites, especially in this season of being home, in this season of quarantine, in this season of active church at home? What do we do with our appetites? Here's what I want to do with you today. I want to tell you a story of two brothers. It's a real story. They were real people. They really lived, and they had a real relationship with God. And in this story, one of the brothers surrenders to his appetite. He decides to choose what he wants now over what he wants most. And it wrecks him. It destroys his life. And I want to show you what happens when we don't manage our appetites, when we allow our appetites to rule us rather than us ruling our appetites. And then at the end of this conversation, I want to give you two words that I believe will be helpful for you as you tell a better story and as you manage your appetites. Two words that can help you to move forward. So if you have a Bible with you or if you have the Bible app on your phone, I want to invite you to turn to the document of Genesis in the Bible. Genesis is the first document in the Bible, Genesis chapter 25. And of course, the verses will be on the screen for you to help you follow along. But this is a story of two brothers, Jacob and Esau. And they're twins. And they're very different, even though they're twins. Esau is a warrior. He's an outdoors kind of guy. He's outdoors because he loves being outdoors. And he was a hunter, and he was somebody who would work the land, vegetables, fruit. He would get grain, and he would feed his family. And he was outdoors. His hands were rough. His hands were dirty. He would come in sweaty, maybe smelling, because he was always outdoors. And then there was Jacob. He was an indoors kind of guy. He was indoors because that's where he wanted to be, indoors. He was a creative. He was a designer. He was a painter. He was a drawer. He was thoughtful. And he would work indoors on things and design things and create things. Esau was the firstborn of these twins. The writer of Genesis tells us that when they were born, Esau came from the womb first, and then Jacob second, grabbing the heel of Esau. And Esau, being the firstborn, had something that Jacob didn't have. And that is the tension in this story. It's the centerpiece of this story. Something called the birthright. Now, this isn't something that we participate in our world today, but it was very prominent in ancient Israel and in the world of those that lived during the time of the scriptures. They would share or talk about this birthright in a very significant way. There were three things that were really powerful about the birthright. The first thing was this, that if you had the birthright, it would double your inheritance, meaning that as the firstborn son, Esau would get double the inheritance of his brother when his mom and his dad passed away. So he would get 2 times what his parents owned versus what Jacob would get. He would only get a portion, one-time portion of that. The second thing about the birthright is that you would become the judge of the family when mom and dad passed away. So you would become the matriarch or the patriarch of the family. Your word was solid. It had authority. It was what people would listen to. And then third thing about the birthright is that there was some sort of sense of spiritual blessing. And the writers of the scriptures don't talk about it in a very specific or detailed way. There was just this understanding during that time that if you held the birthright, God was for you. God was with you. And God would, in some sort of spiritual, mystical way, God would bless you. And so people longed for the birthright. And the tension in this story was actually between Jacob and Esau, and Jacob wanting the birthright from Esau. And that's where we pick up the story. In the document of Genesis chapter 25, starting in verse 29, there's this moment where the birthright rises to the central part of the story, and there's this argument between Jacob and Esau, and it begins this way in verse 29. Once, Jacob was cooking some stew, and Esau came in from the open country famished. It's like when your child, if you're a parent, comes to the dinner table and they're starving, right? In our family, we say, you're not starving, you're just very hungry. Well, Esau comes in very hungry, maybe even starving. He's famished. And then in verse 30, it says, he said to Jacob, quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished. Let me have some of what you're cooking. I'm famished. I'm starving. And this was a moment that Jacob wanted to capitalize on because he's the younger brother and Esau is the older brother. And if you're a younger sibling, you know that there's never been a time where the older needs the younger. It reminds me of a moment in my childhood, in my teen years, when my older brother Dave, who is a personal hero of mine, and I love him. Don't tell him. It'll just make him arrogant and egotistical, but don't tell him what I said about him. But Dave is a hero of mine, and as we've gotten older, we've become better friends, and I'm learning a lot from him. He's a great example to me. But there was a season of life when we were teenagers where we didn't get along really well. We lived in the same house, but he was a senior in high school, I was a sophomore in high school, and seniors don't talk to sophomores, and I was a nerd, and I will admit that, and he was cool, and he will admit that. And there was this moment where he was asked by a girl to go to prom. And he wasn't planning on going, but this friend of ours asked him to go. And so in order to complete his outfit, he needed to borrow a shirt from me. And I took advantage of that. I remember thinking like, he never needs me. He never needs me for anything. And now it's my opportunity to capitalize on this. And so I remember him asking for the shirt. And I said, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to negotiate here. So if you want my shirt, here's what I want from you. I want to be able, because I was a licensed driver, I want to be able to drive your truck whenever I want. And Dave said, nope. And I said, that's okay. We're negotiating, all right? We're negotiating. I said, how about you give me a ride in your truck? And he said, nope. And I said, how about you let me hang with your friends at school? And he said, nope. And I remember throwing out all sorts of ideas like, would you acknowledge me at school? No. Would you wave at me at school? No. Would you fist bump? How about a chest bump? Would you give me like an eyebrow raise? How about that? Well, basically what it boiled down to is Dave was going to allow me to exist in our home still if I let him borrow the shirt. And he went to prom with my shirt. And what I learned in that moment is that there's never a better time to take advantage of the older brother or older sibling because they never need their younger siblings, right? And Jacob took advantage of this moment when his older brother comes in and says, I'm famished, give me some of that stew. And Jacob says to Esau in verse 31 of chapter 25, he says to him this, first, sell me your birthright. Sell me your birthright. Give me the thing that's most important to you, and I'll give you some stew. I'll give you some soup, right? And maybe you have the same thoughts I have. Like, who would do this? Who would take this really important thing that has a spiritual blessing to it, that gives you the authority to be the judge of your family, that gives you a double inheritance? Who would do this? Why would you trade this? Nobody would do this. Who would make this decision? And the answer is, you might. I might. The answer is that we might make these decisions because when we're in moments like this, we don't consider what hangs in the balance of our decisions. We're only thinking about what we want now, not what we want most. And Esau says this in response to that request. He says in verse 32, look, Jacob, I'm about to die. He's dramatic. Those of you that have boys and girls at home, you're parents of sons and daughters, often will say that that girls are dramatic, but those of you that have boys at home, here's what you know. You know the secret. Boys are more dramatic, aren't they? They're more of a drama queen than girls are often. And here is Esau, just dramatic. He's hungry and he says, I'm about to die. And then he says this, what good is my birthright to me? What good is my birthright to me? In this moment, Esau loses perspective. Psychologists actually talk about what happens in this moment. When our appetites get triggered, our brain actually changes, and two things take place. The first thing that takes place is something that they describe as impact bias. Impact bias is defined this way. It takes the simple and it magnifies it. It convinces you and it convinces me when our appetites get inflamed that the thing that we're about to say yes to is going to be so satisfying. And then psychologists talk about something else that happens as our brain changes when our appetites get inflamed. And they call it focalism. It's when the mind focuses on one thing and blurs everything else out. And this is what happens to Esau. He is so focused on feeding himself. He's so focused on his appetite. He wants that bowl of stew that he's like, I will do anything to have it. And so Jacob, just making sure that this is what he wants to do, verse 33, he says to his brother, swear to me first. Like promise, pinky swear. There's no takebacks here. Swear to me first. And it's in this moment that I would want to call a timeout. It's in this moment that I would want to jump in a time machine and go back to this moment in the life of Jacob and Esau. I would want to jump in maybe like a DeLorean and wear my Marty McFly jacket. And if you're not a Back to the Future fan or you have no idea what I'm talking about, you need to get educated. Watch that after you watch this, all right? I love the movie Back to the Future. And I would want to jump in my DeLorean time machine and go back in time, show up in this moment before Esau makes a decision, and I would want to speak to him. And I think what I would say in that moment is, hey, Jacob, can I talk to your brother for just a minute? I want to help him understand the essential power of his decision in this moment, how it's going to impact the rest of his life, because I have the privilege of seeing how the story plays out, but he doesn't. And I would turn to Esau and I would say, hey, don't mind the DeLorean, don't mind the jacket, don't worry about that stuff, but listen to me, eyeball to eyeball. Esau, I want to say something to you. Can I just give you a glimpse of the future? Can I help you see what's going to happen, the story that God is writing for you? Esau, you're going to have 12 sons. And these 12 sons are going to become strong, and they're going to become a tribe, and they're going to become the nation called Israel. And along the way, they're going to become slaves to the kingdom of Egypt. And for 400 years, they're going to be slaves. And I know that doesn't sound attractive, but hear me when I say that it's in these 400 years, they're going to become strong, and they're going to become influential, and they're going to grow in their faith in God. And then there's going to be this moment where God is going to choose someone from his people. His name is Moses. And he's going to send Moses to the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And he's going to invite Pharaoh to let God's people go. He's going to set them free. And when God approaches Moses to invite him into this better story, into this powerful moment, do you know how God is going to introduce himself? He's going to say to Moses that I am the God of Abraham and Isaac and Esau. If you don't sell your birthright. This is going to happen if you choose not to give up your birthright. And then Esau, it gets better, all right? Jacob, be quiet for a moment. Esau, it gets better. 2,000 years later, God is going to show up on earth. And his name is Jesus. And he's going to save the world. He's going to give his life for the forgiveness of sins. He's going to resurrect from the grave 3 days later. And I know you don't know what that means, Esau. It's okay. Just know that he's going to be dead for 3 days and then he's going to rise again. And Matthew's going to write about this. And Matthew is someone that followed Jesus. And it may not make sense to you right now, but just know that this is going to be the story. And he's going to tell the story of Jesus, and he's going to write it down in a letter. And you know how he's going to intro that letter? He's going to start talking about how God is writing a better story. And he's going to describe this God as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Esau. If you don't sell your birthright, if you don't make this decision, I would say, Esau, I know you're hungry. And I'm sure the stew is really good. But don't trade what you want now for what you want most. Don't trade God's potential for your life for a moment where your appetites are inflamed. Esau, I know you're hungry. But do you want to trade all of that for a bowl of stew? Here's the truth. I wasn't there. There is no DeLorean or a Marty McFly jacket. I didn't show up in that moment for Esau. And could I just be real honest with you? Nobody's showing up in that moment for you. Nobody's showing up to tell you about what hangs in the balance in your future if you make this decision. Nobody's showing up. I won't be there, and nobody else will be there. And we're told in this story in Genesis 25 and verse 34 that after Esau swears an oath to give over his birthright, the writer tells us that Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. And then probably the most depressing part of the story, maybe the most depressing sentence in all of the scriptures, is this next one. He ate and he drank and he got up and he left. He traded everything for a moment where he could eat and drink, and then it was over. And then the story ends with this statement. So Esau despised his birthright. It's sad, it's depressing, but it's powerful. And here's why it's powerful. Because we can learn from this story. Here is someone who did not manage their appetites managed them. Here's someone who did not rule over their appetites ruled over them. And you and I don't have to live like that. We can tell a better story because you and I have permission to tell a better story. And so we can learn from this story, and there's two words that I want to give you that can help you to step into the potential, step into the story, step into what God is writing for you. The first word is this: that you can choose to reset. That you can choose in the moments where your appetites are inflamed, you can choose to reset. And reset, what I mean by that is asking this question: in light of what God might do, is this worth trading that? Saying yes to this, is this worth trading what God might do in my future? And here's the thing. You and I don't often talk about our appetites because they can be embarrassing, they can be shameful, they can be things that we don't want other people to know about. But I just want to say this out loud because I think it's important for all of us to know. Secret appetites will influence public action. And secret appetites don't stay secrets for very long because secrets seep. And you know that, and I know that, which is why it's so important that we pause, we take a breath, we choose wisdom, and we reset and ask, in light of what God might do, is this worth trading that? Second word. The word is resist. After you pause, after you take a breath, after you choose wisdom, after you reset, I want to invite you to resist. I want to invite you to say no to what you want now and say yes to what you want most. Maybe the statement that you could tattoo across your forehead is this: I'm not trading what I want most for what I want now. This conversation, "You have permission," is a conversation that began in a letter that a man named Paul writes to a group of people like you and me. And he says to them in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, starting in verse 12, that everything's permissible, but not everything is beneficial. Meaning that you have the freedom to say yes to whatever you want, but it's important to pause and to consider if this thing is actually beneficial to the story that you want to tell, and more importantly, the story that God is writing for you. But the best part is actually at the end of that chapter, and I want to invite you to read it later. But at the end of chapter 6 of 1 Corinthians, there's this phrase that wrecks me every time, and it reminds me to reset and to resist. And it's when Paul says, "You are not your own. You have been bought with a price." See, the value of a thing is found in the price that it will bring, and your value has been found in the life of the Son of God. His name is Jesus. He gave his life for you and for me. Our value is found in Jesus because of what he paid. He gave his life. And he didn't stay dead, which is why on Easter Sunday we're celebrating the resurrection. Things might be canceled, but new life and better stories and the resurrection of Jesus is never canceled. But Paul reminds us why it's important for us to reset and to resist, because you are not your own. You've been bought with a price. So I want to invite you to make two decisions today. The first decision is maybe you need to begin today and trust in Jesus for the very first time, or maybe for the first time in a long time. The second decision is for those that do trust in Jesus. Maybe it's time for you to go public with your faith in baptism. And if you're interested in getting baptized, we're going to make it work. I just jumped on a FaceTime with a friend from Active Church that got baptized in their pool. They were baptized by somebody that's in quarantine with them. And I want to invite you to make that same decision, because remember, things might be canceled, but life change is never canceled. And if you're interested in getting baptized, would you send us a direct message right now? Would you send me a personal email, mike@activechurches.com. Say yes to the moving of God in your heart and in your soul today. But for those of you that need to make maybe a first-time decision to trust in Jesus, or maybe you need to make a first-time and a long-time decision, could I lead you in a moment where you pray? I want to pray over you, and then I want to create a space where you can say some things to God, where you can begin to choose to do life with God, to choose to reset and to resist, because you have permission to tell a better story. Could I pray over you? God, I pray for those that are watching, that are listening, that are engaging. I pray that the stirring in their heart would not be a stirring that they would ignore, but they would pause and reset. And they would recognize that they need to resist their appetite in this moment, because they don't want to trade what they want now for what they want most. You have a better story for us, God. And you are writing that story. And we get to say yes to it or no to it. And I pray for those that are engaging, they would say yes. And so if that's you, with your eyes closed, with your head bowed, would you just in your own heart, in your own mind, would you say these words to God? Jesus, I trust you. Jesus, I trust you. Those aren't the only words that you need to say, but it's the beginning of the conversation. Maybe you need to say those words for the first time in a long time, just quietly, silently, in your own heart, in your own mind. Jesus, I trust you. And with your eyes closed, as you're praying, I just want to say these words over you. That is the best decision you can make, because you're moving into the better story that God is writing for you. That you are choosing to reset and resist, because you have permission to tell a better story. So God, I know that you hear us. I know that you love us. And I pray that as we make this decision to step into our better story, we would know that there are better things ahead. The best really is yet to come. So I pray for those that made a first-time decision, that they would be bold and share that with us by sending us a direct message, maybe even an email to me. And for those that made the decision to get baptized, they would do the same. Because life change isn't canceled. You are still good. And you are still God, even in this very strange season of quarantine. So may we reset and resist and tell better stories because of Jesus. It's in his name that we pray all these things. Amen and amen and amen.
Hey, if you made a decision to follow Jesus today, we want to know about that story that is being told in your life. And one of the best ways for you to do that is to message us at our Active Churches page on Facebook. We want to help you tell a better story. We want to help you take that next step of faith. And maybe today you've made the decision to be baptized. It's one of the things that maybe stirred up in your heart, and you want to tell a better story wherever you're at, and even in the midst of this crazy season. We want to help you do that, and you can do that by heading to the description, and there's a baptism link there. And we want to connect with you. We want to help you tell a better story, and we want to walk you through what it looks like for you to follow Jesus for the rest of your life.
Hey, if you're new around here, we want to help you take that next step. We know that watching online may be hard, and we've created a Facebook group called Active Connect.
Pastor Mike, myself, and the team are going to be in that Facebook group, and we want to help you get connected. So would you look at the link in the description, and let's stay connected as a community. Hey, I just want to say thank you for your generosity. We've been able to provide some incredible hope. We've been able to have an incredible reach on our Instagram, our Facebook, and tell a better story in this world. And we're going to have an incredible Easter next week, and it all happens because of your giving. People are telling better stories, making decisions to be baptized, making decisions to follow Christ because of you. We're doing this together, Active Church, and I want to invite you to give with us as we tell this story together. There's two ways you can do that. Head over to activechurches.com, click give, or text the amount to the number on the screen right now.
Hey, we love you, Active Church, and we are here. We'll see you next weekend for Easter Sunday.